It was the year 480 BC, and the Greek world was under threat. A massive Persian army commanded by King Xerxes was marching across the country to conquer the Greeks. But in their path was one barrier, a narrow pass known as the Hot Gates, defended by 300 Spartans and a few Greek warriors. They were outnumbered, surrounded by a powerful empire, and yet they would resist. The battle that lay ahead would be remembered for centuries. The Persian Empire, at its height, was a force to be feared. Xerxes, king of the Persians, had already conquered smaller Greek states to expand his empire. His next target was the core of Greek civilization, Athens and Sparta. But the Greeks were not so easily defeated. The Persian army had conquered much of the Greek world, and now their eyes were set on the Greek city-states. The Greeks had united in a league, an uneasy alliance between Athens, Sparta, and the other city-states. Their aim was to stop the Persian advance. That was when the Spartans stood in their way. Sparta was renowned for its well-trained warriors who fought with discipline. They were known all over the ancient world, and their training never ended. King Leonidas was in charge of these warriors, a man who was famous for his bravery, power, and strong will. His 300 finest warriors, selected on the basis of their fighting skills, were ordered to defend the pass at Thermopylae, a thin strip of land between the sea and the mountains. If they could hold the pass, they would be able to provide enough time for the rest of Greece to prepare for the coming battle. On the first day of the battle, it was evident that the Greeks were a force to be reckoned with. Although they were outnumbered, some claim that the Persian army had more than 100,000 soldiers. The Spartans and their Greek allies fought bravely. The Persian soldiers, who had been advancing through Greece with ease, met unexpected strength. Over 10,000 Persian soldiers were killed in the first 2 days alone. From his golden throne on a nearby hill, Xerxes watched in amazement. His soldiers, who had seemed invincible, were losing. The Spartans were ferocious, fighting bravely, making every inch of the narrow pass a site of bloodshed for the Persians. The battle was one the Persians had never witnessed before, and their morale began to weaken. Nevertheless, the Persian king was determined to break through the Greek line of defense. As the battle continued, it was evident that Xerxes had to adopt a new strategy. On the second day of the battle, a local Greek shepherd named Ephialtes visited the Persian camp. He said he had a way around the defenses of the Greeks, a secret mountain path that could enable the Persians to surround the Greek soldiers. Ephialtes, who wanted to save himself, betrayed his fellow Greeks and informed Xerxes of the secret path. The Persian king, eager to break the deadlock, sent his best fighters, the Immortals, through the mountain pass at night. They marched swiftly, hoping to surprise the Greeks in the back. The Immortals arrived in the rear of the Greek ranks early in the morning, surprising the defenders. However, the Greeks had expected that there was a threat. Leonidas was informed of the Persian move before the Immortals reached there. Leonidas, knowing what was to come, made his important decision. He instructed the majority of the Greek army to fall back. The rest of the soldiers, his 300 Spartans included, would remain and fight to the death. It was a sacrifice for the benefit of all of Greece. The rest of the soldiers would flee and tell the story of the 300 who had fought against a king and battled against impossible odds. The last day of the battle arrived. With the Persian army closing in from all directions, Leonidas sounded the call to his men. The Spartans and a few Theban soldiers were ready to make their last stand. The Spartans knew what was to become of them. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and rescue was impossible. Yet, they would continue to fight, knowing that their deaths would be the catalyst for the rest of Greece. Leonidas, with his warriors at his side, issued one final order. "Have a hearty breakfast," he instructed them, "for tonight we dine in Hades." It was a grim thing to say, but one which reflected the Spartan determination. They would fight to the death. The Persians, commanded by Xerxes himself, were ready to make their final push. Various accounts tell different stories about the battle. Some historians write that Leonidas and his men made a first attack upon the Persians, fighting fiercely as if cornered, before being overwhelmed. Others write that Xerxes made sacrifices to the gods for victory before the final charge. Whatever the events, the outcome was the same. The 300 Spartans and their allies fought bravely, but were overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of the Persian army. The Spartans fought bravely, employing their spears and shields with great expertise. When their spears were broken and their shields were shattered, they drew out their swords and continued fighting. They fought so bravely that the Persians were stunned, but it was obvious that they could never keep fighting forever. The Spartans were slain one by one. In the fight, King Leonidas was slain. Although his remaining troops did their best to defend him, he could not resist the powerful force of the Persians. His body was later dragged away by his troops and brought to safety, but it would not remain there for long. Xerxes, to humiliate him, had Leonidas's head severed and his body put on display on a spear. This act, although a victory symbol for Xerxes, did not diminish the legacy of Leonidas and his troops. Although the Spartans were slain, their sacrifice was not in vain. The rest of the Greek troops retreated, but the legend of the 300 spread like wildfire throughout Greece. Their tale of courage inspired many others to fight against the invading Persians. The spirit of the Persian troops was shattered, and the Greeks now had something much more powerful than weapons: determination. The Battle of Thermopylae was a rallying cry for the whole of Greece. The fall of the 300 was not the end of the war, but the spark that united the Greek city-states again. The Battle of Salamis, and subsequently at Plataea, turned the tide against the Persian invasion. Xerxes' plan of conquering Greece was crushed, and the Persian Empire was forced to withdraw. The legend of the 300 Spartans, however, endured. The courage displayed at Thermopylae became a badge of honor to stand up for oneself, of sacrifice, and of honor. The Greeks, inspired by Leonidas's and his men's courage, continued to fight with renewed fierceness. In the years that followed, the Battle of Thermopylae would be remembered as one of the greatest last stands in history. The Spartan stand also had an effect on the Persians. Xerxes, who had believed his empire could not be defeated, would never forget what he learned at Thermopylae. The Persians, conquerors though they were humbled by the fierce resistance they encountered. The courage of the 300 Spartans is a legend that has touched the hearts and imagination of men and women across the centuries. It is proof of the strength of the human spirit and how far people will go to defend their home and their freedom. The legend of Leonidas and his warriors continues to inspire men and women faced with great challenges and who choose to fight back. If you enjoyed this legend, don't forget to click the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for more on history's greatest legendary battles.